the recording and I'll let you know when it's set to go, and then you can start the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, you're ready to go.
Okay. I'd like to call the Tuesday, July 7th, 2020 South Bristol School Board regular meeting into session. It looks like we are all here, so if we can stand for the, oh, Rick doesn't, hold on.
You're ready to go.
I'd like to call the Tuesday, July 7th. Rick beat me to it before, but I have mine here.
You're all good.
All right. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we're all here. So Craig, I believe you have an adjustment to the agenda.
I do. Sue Fawcett, our Director of Special Services, is with us. What we are asking Sue to address is the regional program agreements. What we'll do is Sue will describe what that is. I'll share that with you between now and the August meeting, and then we'll look at voting approval of a revised agreement in August.
Okay. Sue, are you needed throughout the whole meeting? Should we start with you first? Or are you here for the duration, or?
I can stay for the meeting if you choose, or if you want me to do it now and I can head out, that's either way is fine. I've been staying at the others.
Okay. Why don't we do the secretary's report and then we'll just jump in with you, if that's all right. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 2nd, 2020 regular meeting of the South Bristol School Board. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we get Susan. Did anybody see anything? The only thing I noticed was under educational presentation, it was the second, third, and fourth grade classroom. Other than that, I didn't catch anything. Okay, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor? Sarah Mitchell is in favor. Susan Bartlett Rice?
In favor.
Nick McPhee?
In favor.
Norman Saucier?
In favor.
Bob Emmons?
Yes.
All right, so moved. All right, we'll go on to you then, Sue.
So as you are aware, we've talked a lot about our regional programs. So we have the Compass program over at Bristol School and the Pathways Life Skills program up at Jefferson. Both of those programs require regional program agreements, which have been signed into effect for, I want to say, the last 3 or 4 years. They did expire, those agreements, on June 30th. Over the course of the past few months, we've been working on revising those to bring back to the boards for sign off again. And about 2 months ago, the department contacted all of the regional programs across the state for a meeting very similar to this to talk about some changes to Title 20A that resulted in impacting how regional program agreements should be written. With that being said, one of the things that I would be proposing for you folks is to review those regional agreements that we had in place and extend them 1 year, which is what the plan would be for August, is for you to look at those agreements between now and then and agree to extend for 1 year. Some of those changes in 20A would include the need for a cooperative board, so one member from each of the participating towns participate as part of a cooperative board to make some agreements towards things like budget and changes and things like that that are needed with the program. The other piece, which we've talked about in the past, is around having an administrative designee, so a program director that holds the way that 20A is written. It says that they must be qualified as a special education director. They can have an 035, which is the assistant special ed director certification, but they should be working on their 030, so that special ed director. And they need to be on site, which is fairly significant it's something that I think your cooperative board would want to talk about and how you could do that. I do know that we have some staff members that have been working towards that identification or that category, so that they could hold that. And I would, the board could potentially look at stipends for having that position versus just, hiring somebody just to hire somebody. So it's something to look at. So we'd be looking for your approval to extend for 1 year and then work towards a new agreement beyond that. The state did say that you have 3 years to implement the changes that are in 20A. So there's some time to do that, which is why we're looking for an extension.
I would just add, sorry, Sarah, real quickly. We started looking at these in December and then got sidetracked by COVID, sidetracked by the changes to Title 20A. So they've been kind of in the works, and I'm glad that Sue has reinforced the need to do that.
Sue, could you give just a very brief description of Compass and Pathways for our 2 new board members? Just
Sure, absolutely. And thank you, Sarah, because I couldn't remember if we had done the overview of the 2 programs or not. So Compass over in Bristol is our behavior program. So they provide services to students that their needs can't be met in the general ed setting or in their local school. So their behaviors are to a level that they require behavior intervention, behavior programming, sometimes self-contained behavior programming. Some of those students that are there have moved out of the self-contained behavior programming, and they've moved back into general ed classes with support from the behavior program. And the goal is always to transition students back to their home school when it's appropriate. The life skills program up at Jefferson is for students with more severe cognitive impairments and intellectual disabilities. They require, adaptive living, daily living skills, again, more self-contained programming. A higher level of support is needed in both programs. Oftentimes, these kiddos require ed techs to support their day-to-day programming that can be maintained within a school setting, but not necessarily in their home school. Both of these programs also eliminate the need for an out-of-district placement potentially. More so the behavior program, I would say, than our life skills program. For some of those students that are in our behavior program, if that program wasn't there, we would be needing to send students out to more costly out-of-district placements.
And the 4 schools, I'm sorry, I don't know if you said it or not, Sue, but it's
Nope.
Noblesboro, South Bristol, Bristol, and
Jefferson.
Jefferson, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Participate. Great Salt Bay is not part of the regional agreement.
And I think I didn't say it last night at Jefferson, but I did say it in Bristol, I believe, that, Great Salt Bay, if they wanted to participate, that would be open for a discussion with them as you develop your interlocal agreement moving forward. I can't speak on their behalf, but I think it would be worthwhile to just offer that out so that they know that they're still allowed to participate if they choose.
Thanks. They were members years ago, weren't they, and then withdrew?
Yeah, they decided to start their own program about 4 years ago, at the end of 4 years, because they started their own life skills program 4 years ago, which is also when we started our behavior program. They held a behavior program, Jefferson held the life skills program.
Thanks.
Yep.
Just a question. These sound like wonderful programs. Does South Bristol School have any students participating in either of them?
South Bristol does currently have a student over in Bristol at our behavior program. However, throughout the course of the 4 years that I've been in the district, South Bristol has utilized both the life skills program as well as the behavior program in different capacities. So 2 or 3 students roughly have utilized a combination of those programs.
And we did talk about these when we were developing the budget in the fall, because I believe the board did motion and vote to continue to participation.
Yeah, and it was more just for Namond and Nick's benefit.
Oh, no, it's,
yeah.
No, thank you. It's great.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
So we'll just look forward to keep receiving information about that from you, and then we'll have to make an action in August.
Yes, and I just noted that as an agenda item for August.
Okay. All right. Is that it for? Okay. All right, so we don't have any educational presentations this month. The chair's report, the next regular meeting of the South Bristol School Board will be on Tuesday, August 4th, 2020 at 5:30. I think at this point we can say in person or by remote access because there has been some talk about trying to get it in person. And if we do some sort of hybrid model, I think we've let some of the other towns work out some of the kinks for us so that if we do a hybrid model, I think we can get the microphones and the sound working well so that we can have a productive meeting. Next meeting of the AOS board is to be determined. And I don't think there's much to report on the AOS.
We have not met, Sarah, I don't believe since early March. Josh and I have checked in, but we have not met. The interlocal agreement is still floating out there for approval, but right now there just is not a lot that's responsibility of the AOS, so we just haven't come together.
Yep. Okay, I think that's it for me. I'll hand it over to Scott.
Thank you, Sarah. Before I dive in with the report, I'm going to sort of delegate a lot of this to John in terms of the facilities piece. And then John, I'll kind of throw you a few softballs, and if you want to run with it that way they're hearing it directly from the horse's mouth rather than through me. So do you want to talk quickly about the projects that have been working on and that have either been completed or nearly complete?
Sure. So the project for the gym, we got the gym wall opened up. J.F. Scott came down, opened the wall up. We found several issues in the wall. One, the biggest one being when they installed the electrical panel on the side of the building. There is no sheathing and no siding behind that panel. So the insulation was right up against the back of the panel. So what it was doing every time it rained, water would run down. It would wick into the insulation, then run down the interior of the wall and out through the bottom of the wall and into the door frame. That's what took out the bottom of the wall and the door. That's been corrected. They were able to get sheathing in there and get it secured and watertight, so that has been corrected. So that's fixed. They fixed several other places around the doors that the mechanical seal had failed. They didn't silicone it properly. So that's been all cleaned out and fixed and resealed. The new door frames have been installed. The new mullion is in. The doors are rehung. They open and shut perfectly. The mullion can be taken out as needed to open that space to pallets. So you can get shipments in through those doors. So that's done. The doors going out the back side of the building that go out to the playground, those doors were completely gone and the frames were gone. That's been replaced. The hardware's in. We did have to order 2 door closers for that because the door closers were short as well. So those are coming. They should actually probably be there tomorrow or the next day. And those will be installed by J.F. Scott because they're still on site. The door leading into one of the classrooms where the ramp was bad, they came down with a grinder, pulled out the door sill, found out that the door sill had never been sealed to the concrete. So they took that out, fixed it, ground the concrete away from the building so water does now flow away from the building instead of into the building, which is always good. Installed a new door sill, got it re-drilled in a different spot so that it's in there securely and is now properly sealed to the concrete. So they probably got another couple days there to finish up patching and painting in the gym and doing some sealing around the backside, and they'll be complete with that project.
Great.
Any questions on that one?
Oh, sounds thorough, John. Thanks.
They did a good job.
Good.
It's going to save that side of the building.
Yeah, it sounds like the people who did it before weren't really there to do it correctly.
Not my favorite contractor that did it before.
Yeah.
And we are having a couple of windows replaced as well.
Yeah.
Just due to age, or are they leaking as well?
They're leaking. They're all foggy.
Yeah, the
Oh.
seals are blown out of them.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I want to kind of move things along. I have a mistake in the principal's report on number 4. The generator work beginning week July 4th. Specialty services is not doing the generator work. That is on me. That's tomorrow. So my apologies for that. Greenhouse is looking great. It's not completely done from soup to nuts because there's a door that needs to be installed and plexiglass for windows, but it's in really great shape and it looks good.
Did we have enough funds in the grants that we got to cover all of that?
Yes,
Okay, great.
yes. Actually, we have a little left over, which I'm pleased about because there are going to be some things that we're going to have to do about getting crushed rock and stuff like that. So, okay. I want to kind of shift gears for a second in terms of facilities and talk a little bit about where are we? The fencing. I know that we put in the budget for fencing, for additional fencing, and we can do that. And the gentleman will come here. But when we were thrown some information about our air handling exchange unit, I got a little gun shy about getting that work done, trying to save some pennies to make sure that we did some due diligence to have enough money to pay for that unit. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the board to, and I'm going to transition here into, you should have gotten a document from me, I think it was last night when I completed it, and that was for potential funding sources to try to find $45,000 or as much as possible of that $45,000 in different places before just going to the town and asking for that, because you know, we want to try to do our due diligence first. So in there, how do you guys feel about adding fencing to that? It's not much, it's like 3,000, but it's something. Do you want that fencing done? We do have 5 pre-K students coming in, and we said we were going to do it. Do you want me to move forward with that or try to be a little cautious with that right in the beginning?
Is there a way to do something in between? Like, you know, you've used some other materials to fence off the playground from the woods and things like that. I mean, maybe we could
Put a
keep out,
temporary fence? Yes.
you know, $250 to, or whatever you thought might be possible to have some sort of visual barrier for the kids, but not the permanent fence that we had originally intended to put up.
Yep, we can absolutely put a temporary fence up. I know a location where we can get a lot of it for nothing, so.
Scott, are those 5 students still a lock? Are you sure they're going to come?
Yes.
We lost 3, right, that were deciding to stay home, so we're down from 8, but
5 is better than I.
Is there any
anticipated.
chance? Sorry, Nick.
Oh, no, that was all I was going to say. Go right ahead, Norman.
No, I was just going to say, is there any chance of finding these funds elsewhere? Are there any donors who'd be happy to contribute to something like this? Or do we have anything else, anything left from other grants we've received?
So let's look at this document, Norman, if it's okay, and we'll just kind of go down through it. And I won't take a lot of time. I'm just going to kind of talk about the heading first. So one of the pieces that if we did not have, originally thought that we could eliminate the pre-K ed tech if we only had 7 students, but we're going to need this money we can change the job description for that person a little bit to include the bus monitor. So if we go in the transportation part of the budget, we put money in there for the bus monitor. So $6,900, we can sort of, for lack of better words, we can cover in-house and we don't need to hire another bus monitor. We can do that. So there's potential funding source. I looked at what the actual expenditures were last year for electricity and propane, and we under executed in both lines. So there's a little bit of savings in there that we can anticipate for next year. I sort of ballpark those at 3,000 and 8,000 respectively. Thank goodness that we were given the direction to put in 10,000 for facility contingency, and I can think of no other better use of that facility contingency than for this purpose. There is money for security equipment that I know that in the last meeting that we had, we agreed that we would kind of table that depending on our priorities to see if our priorities changed. And I think they have. And then we are speaking to Norman specifically to what you were talking about. We do have a federal grant coming our way of 10,000, and we'll be using some of that for the summer school program, but we'll have some money left over from that. So
I thought we were taking the summer school transportation out of the Scott family donation.
we could absolutely do that. So we can bump that back up to 2,000. So they would just add 2,000 to the 37,000 total. So there's 39,790. So we're almost there. And
While you're thinking, can I take you back up to numbers 1 and 2 for line 147 and 148, the electricity and propane?
yes,
Are those savings from fiscal year 21 or from 20?
from as of the end of June.
So we really don't have access to that money.
No, I was just looking at what the trend was.
Okay, that's fine.
Money spent, what and how much over the years, and we weren't really sure, given the new heating system that we had, like how much we were going to use. So, and I didn't subtract all of it. I just said, okay, this is a comfort level. It does give us just a little bit of play in there, but
Okay, that's the clarification. Thank you.
And I have to acknowledge, I have no knowledge of this, except for I was talking to Russ Holm about the air handling exchange and opening school and all this. And he said that he fully expects that heating costs are going to go up next winter. Again, that's just passing on some information from him. So I just want to make sure that if that is true, we really have left enough to accommodate that increase if it does happen.
I think we're locked in.
Are we locked in?
You did,
Yeah.
you did
So I
lock
think
in
we're good.
propane, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're good with that. And we locked in actually at a really good deal. I don't have it right in front of me, but I do know that it was it was less than it was last year. So
Locked in, what do you mean by locked in as far as?
signed a contract for a fixed rate.
As far as price per gallon?
Yep. And it's not going to, if it goes up, we don't pay the extra.
Right, but with the air exchanger, you're bringing cold air in from outside. So I think that's what Russ was talking about.
We might go through, yeah, okay.
Go
Maybe
through more
for
fuel.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah,
I
okay.
can speak to that a little bit if you'd like, and later.
Go for it.
Actually, I'd like you to do it right now, John, because I'm going to ask the board in a little bit to charge us with whether we move forward with this project, because if, we need to move
Okay.
on, we need to move on it. So go ahead,
All
John.
right. So I have the proposal. I've read the proposal. I've talked to Andy down to Specialty Services. So what they're looking at is 3 EVR units. EVRs, if in a perfect world, would not be my solution for that building, but budget-wise, you'd be probably 5 times that cost to put air handlers in there, because you don't have 3-phase power down there, and it would be extraordinarily expensive to get it in there. So you'd end up with several air handlers because you can only go to a 5-ton on single-phase power. So you'd end up with multiple units. You'd end up having to build out space because you couldn't get them into the attic space, so you'd end up putting in mezzanines. It would be an astronomical amount of money. So after talking to Andy and what he's using, they are going to use a product called Renew Air. They have a really good track record. They do not have a wheel, which is a big plus. especially for they're a maintenance nightmare with a wheel in them. So these rely on dampers and doors, which is a fairly effective way to do it. They're about 60% efficient. So pulling heat out of the room and adding cold air, we talked at great length about diffuser use. And we would use one of the specialty diffusers that blows the air across the ceiling instead of down into the room so you don't feel a cold draft. Because a lot of it's perception. If you're sitting in a room at 72 degrees and you feel a cold draft, you're going to feel that the room is cold. But if you're sitting in a room at 72 degrees and there's no draft, you don't feel that the room is cold. They are going to reuse what used to be the exhaust ductwork for their return. So your returns are going to actually come out. If you step into the room and look down at your feet, there's a grill in the wall in the brick chase. That grill would actually be the return to the unit. So you're actually pulling the air out of a pretty good spot over by the door low. So it's actually going to change the air fairly well. I have a feeling that those exhaust fans got turned off years ago because when you run those exhaust fans with no way to get air in the room, you'd be pulling air in around the windows. So it was probably really cold. There's plenty of baseboard heat in those rooms to make up for the loss. So I don't think you're going to have a huge heating cost increase because of these units. Cost effectiveness of doing this, you're looking at $45,000. That's for the units and the installation. There are some other costs in this that you need to be aware of. There's a $44,486 cost for the BMS upgrade, which would take in the boilers. That's also going to control these VAV units because you want to be able to schedule them. You want to be able to schedule them to come on an hour before the class and run until about the end of the class or an hour afterwards to exchange the air again. You don't want to run them 24/7. That would increase your heating costs a little bit. Also not in the quote is the electrical work. I'd have to talk to Paul to get a quote on that. It shouldn't be astronomical. The power requirements of these two units is not huge. They're 220, but they're single phase. So that shouldn't be bad.
Do you know what those units for amperage wise?
He's getting that information to me. I have not got it yet.
How much did you say it was to get these things on timers? I mean, that's ideally what they're doing. They're putting.
The BMS system upgrade would be about $4,400. That would also take in your boilers, and your boilers really should be on your BMS system so you can run night setbacks and try to recoup a little savings from
So
that.
that's run all through the controls, not through the thermostats?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, the thermostats, there'd be no thermostats on the IVs. It'd be a set.
Right.
It'd just be a set exchange rate.
Yeah. That just on a timer, I would assume, just to.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would basically be when your BMS looks at it, it's going to schedule it. It'll give you a run signal, and it'll give you any kind of an alarm or failure signal.
Sure.
So if you lost a motor in one of them, it would tell you.
Right. So we aren't just try to run, you wouldn't know it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Can you give any real ballpark on what you think the electrical will be? I mean, are we talking 5 or 10,000? Are we talking? Do you have any sense?
Yeah, I don't believe it'd be that high.
Okay.
I'm thinking you're probably looking more like to get everything in breakers. I'd say you're probably looking more like 3,500, 3,800.
So do you think
that
it's
range.
reasonable to expect that? Well, actually, I shouldn't. I interrupted you, so that maybe there's more add-ons that I need to keep.
Go ahead. What was your question?
Was it just those two things that aren't in the quote, or is there more?
No, that's the only two things.
So do you think for 55,000?
I think 55,000, you'd be in pretty good shape. Generally what I do when a project comes up like this, I usually add 10% to whatever I've got for estimates for a contingency in case you run into something small. But I think if we talk to Paul and get him to come up with a firm price, I'm pretty confident after talking to Andy at Specialty Services that whatever goes wrong, he'll take care of at the 45,000.
And Paul is at school doing the generator work this
Paul
week?
will be
so-
at school doing the generator work, so that helped you a little bit.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I don't know if anybody has any more questions for John?
I
do.
got one, John, on the that ERV unit. So that pulls fresh air from outside, correct?
Yeah, so how these things work, it'll pull air from the inside the room down by the doors.
Yeah.
It'll pull outside air
And mix them.
and mix them. It's got a set of dampers in there with a set of doors that it'll mix to
Yeah.
maintain. And if it starts getting cold, it'll put a little more inside air versus outside air.
Where those units are sitting, is that a cold space or is that a insulated ceiling or an insulated roof on there?
That's above the ceiling. If you're standing in the old gym and look up, there's a set of doors
Yeah.
up in the ceiling that goes out into that attic space.
Okay.
That'd be out in that attic space is where they'd be hanging.
Is that conditioned though? Is that?
That is not conditions.
Okay.
It is insulated,
Yeah.
so it's not
Not
drastic.
conditioned. Right.
It's not sitting outside.
I get you. Yeah.
Yeah, we also talked about it. You could do some stuff with this system later. You could put some reheats in there,
Yep.
which would be really effective. I mean, I don't think you'd want to do that right now, but in the future, you could look at budgeting the money to put a couple of reheats in there, and
Yeah.
that would
See
be
what the-
very effective.
See what the fuel cost does and then maybe
Right.
go from there. Sure.
Right.
Thanks, John.
John, a quick question.
Yes.
If the feds would change the standard from 15 cubic feet per minute to say 20, is that a big deal to?
When everybody talks about the ASHRAE standards, everybody says 15 cubic feet per minute. That's kind of a ballpark. I could send you the documentation, but the ASHRAE formula is like a page long. It's very complicated. Right now, the ASHRAE lowered it. It's back down to around 10. So this is figured on 15, which is actually higher than the current ASHRAE standard. I believe the ASHRAE will come back up on the standard. I think they'll up it.
It seems like with all the recent news that they're not thinking the virus spreads so much by surface contact, but in the aerosol. So I
Yes.
think that would be a major consideration.
Yes. And these units are filtered. They do have a 2-inch pleat filter in them, which is good.
So if it did go up to like past 15, can we modify this, like say next year or whatever? So could we modify this system to get more out of it?
That's a question I'd have to talk to him about. I haven't gotten the model information on these EIVs yet.
Okay.
Currently, you'd be at about 5 CFM above the ASHRAE standard.
Yeah.
Because the ASHRAE standard takes into consideration the size of the room and the number of the people in the room.
Mhm.
So the actual size of the room isn't that much flow. It's when you start adding in the people, and it's based on the maximum number of people occupancy wise.
So what
And
it could
so-
handle.
So what it could handle.
So the
So,
classrooms off the gym and the gym itself has this already? Like, are we, like there's an area, like if we
Oh,
were.
you're talking about the new gym.
I'm sorry, the new gym. Yeah. So
Yes. Yeah.
so everything in the new gym is up to like the 10 standards or the 15 or where
Yes.
are we?
They can meet the 15 standard easily in the gym, and the classrooms off in it with the current while the unit is being replaced.
John, have you heard anything about like doing some type of UV bulb in these returns or something? Just for...
There's a lot of talk about UV. There's no actual documented proof that UV kills the virus.
Right.
In my current life in the medical field, when they installed the way handlers, they put UV filters in everything, but there is no proof that it actually does the job
For this particular, what we're trying
for
to
this
work with.
particular virus. And
Okay.
But
So
if it's,
if it's okay, I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
no, that's all right.
So I don't know if this is out of turn or anything, Craig, but I wanted to kind of circle back because I'm going to need some help from the board at this point. In order for us to have any shot of coming back to school, obviously this is an area that must be taken care of. If it isn't, then I really can't support having kids come here, or adults for that matter. So in terms of trying to figure out whatever that acceptable level of risk is to get everybody back, it's unacceptable if we don't have it. So I know that we have the cart before the horse, but I'm looking, the longer that we delay this, the longer it's going to take to get this work done. Specialty Services has indicated that they can get the work done before school. So at some point, I'd like to, whether it's now or later in the meeting, have an action step to vote to say, yes, go ahead and have this done, or wait for more information, or however, whatever the amendment is.
Yeah, and I don't see that there's a lot of opposition. I think we do need to take a vote, but I would also encourage you that for things like this, I'm hoping we don't come against any things like this between now and when we open school, but we have the ability to call emergency meetings like the day after you get a quote. So if you do come across something again like this, where you have a quote, even though our meeting was like a week after you got the quote, we can respond to this even more quickly if we need to. So just keep that in mind, especially when it comes to like locking down services like this. We do need to move as quickly as possible, and we can do that without our regular meetings too. I had one more question for John, just about price, because I was looking at Andy's letter, and it includes the boiler room controls for like $4,500, and then it says that we propose the above mentioned work for the sum of, you know, just over $44,000. So does that lead me to believe that those boiler room controls were in that $45,000?
that's the way it's written,
But that's not.
but I'm not sure that's accurate. I need to clarify that with Andy,
Okay, so we're,
because in the
Looking
first
to
part
see-
of it, it says that it would be the 44,000 for the ERVs.
okay. Are there any other questions from anybody?
Just so I'm clear, Sarah, so we were talking about 45, and then John mentioned 55 plus 10%.
Yep.
So we're close to 60. So do we have a $45,000 issue or a $60,000 issue?
Looks like a $60,000 issue at the moment.
I would say to add some type of contingency to the project, and then if you don't need it, fantastic. But it's there if you do have to have it. Because you
Yes.
never know when you start opening ceilings and walls, that if you run
Sure.
into something strange in a wall or a ceiling, you have to fix it at the time.
Yeah, I think we all can agree on that. So I guess we are talking about $60,000. Is that right, Scott?
The only difference from that, Norman, that I can see is if when John speaks with Andy at Specialty Services, if that 4,500 is built into that 45,000 figure, depending on how that conversation goes.
So then it's a motion probably up to 60, 55 or 60, Sarah?
Yeah, that's what I was, I just want to address Norman's point before too, is that I think we are in a good position to be able to ask for and potentially receive donations towards this. And I'm willing to try and help with that. I think we're we have a very generous community. And I do think that this is obviously, like Scott said, it's something we need to do to be able to bring these kids back to school. And we've received a lot of money for food donations and all that. And I think that that's just one step away from receiving donations to get our kids back in the building. So I think that, I hope I'm not too optimistic, but I think that we probably can cut some of this cost down with donations from the community.
That's great.
Yeah, you've done a nice job with that, Sarah.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to spend no more than $60,000 to install the air handling system and all the other air handling system, boiler controls, and what was the other thing, and electrical work. Yeah, I guess that's it, right?
Yes.
Second it.
Okay. Susan Bartlett Rice, are you in favor? Or?
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay, Nick McPhee,
In favor.
Normand Saucier,
In favor?
Bob Emmons,
Yes, favor.
and likewise I am. If you can just pass along those quotes as you get them, like from tomorrow, and just to give us clarification on the boiler room controls, that would be great.
I'll talk to Andy first thing tomorrow morning.
Mhm.
Clarify that, send everybody an email. I'll talk to tomorrow as well. Tomorrow, actually, I'm going to see him tomorrow. So I will try to get that underway as well, get the quote from him on that.
Yep.
And then I'll email total package out to everybody with what I anticipate the cost to be.
And then the same talk with Andy, just get him going so we're on his schedule.
Yeah, so I'll call him in the morning and have him order them because those units are at least 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
So
Is the heater going in now or soon? Is it in?
what?
The rooftop unit, is that? has that
Rooftop
started?
unit is scheduled, that's not done yet.
Sarah, if I can, you mentioned quick response or quick call should anything else come up. I just want to ask John, because I've asked him at each meeting that he attends. John, is there anything else out there at this time that you're concerned about?
The only other thing I would want to look at, and I'm actually going to Bristol to look at the same thing on Thursday, is do you feel that you need any shielding anywhere in the building? Plexiglass? Because if you feel that you need to like put a piece of plexiglass around the library desk so people can walk up to it and be comfortable.
Mhm.
If you feel that you need any of that stuff, you got to do it now because that stuff is like disappearing from the market really fast.
I should think Katie's desk might be a good candidate for that.
Agreed. Yeah.
So when she is down there, it's going to be Sue Parker's, partial owner of Oaks and Parker's. She had like 9 pallets of fiberglass and Lexan left, and she's kind of doing us a favor and trying to get it into the schools instead of other places.
Very
So I'll have
appreciated.
her look at that.
Thank you, John.
You know better than us where we need it, so whatever your suggestions are.
I think, first of all, and just quickly speaking with on Katie's, I think that we do have a split door. I'd
Oh,
like
right.
to shut that door, leave it shut. It wouldn't be a bad idea to put a piece of plexiglass on the top part of it so that
Yep.
people can still pass things if we needed to, but
You could actually put a piece of 1/8" Lexan in there with a cutout on the bottom for a pass-through.
so
You
it's,
can actually Velcro it and just stick it in there, and if you need to, you can take it out.
so there are, we've been thinking along the lines of that. So,
Good.
okay. Well, thank you for your vote on that. And thank you, John, for,
One more thing from me.
I got one too for you.
They are,
Okay.
are they
One
cheap?
more thing for me is sanitation of the building. You do now have a sanitizer that holds 15 gallons, lasts quite a long time. There's been some discussion around hand sanitizer. I would suggest that you mount your hand sanitizers and use touchless dispensers. They work quite well. It's a foam product. It also has aloe in it. It meets the CDC's guidelines for alcohol content. And if you mount them to the wall, they don't tend to walk off. People don't do it on purpose, but they'll pick it up, take it somewhere else, set it down, and then the next person that needs it is not available.
So are those battery operated, John? I'm not
They
familiar
are
with.
battery operated.
Okay.
The dispenser is like $25. They're not really expensive. But if that's something that you want to look at doing, we need to order them soon.
How many are you thinking we're gonna need around the building?
Other schools have been telling people to put them in classrooms that don't have sinks.
Okay.
Hand washing is still your best option. It works better than anything. But if you don't have access to a sink, I would say they'd be a good thing.
Scott, would you know that I'm going to do a walk around with you and John later in the week or early next week. Would you take a look and give John a number and let's get those ordered?
I will. We don't have very many classrooms that
Yeah.
don't. We have some, but not very many. And then we'll have to figure out if that, are we going to consider the little offices, John? Are we going to consider those classrooms?
Yeah.
But right now,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, I expect that we have one as soon as people come into the building. There should be
Main
one
entrance to the
there,
building,
and there should be one in the learning center.
learning
And
center.
that's off the top of my head. And then figuring out what constitutes a classroom. One in the
Right.
gym, is right when people walk in. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Craig, we can do that.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
John, my other question was, and I couldn't recall if we had talked about, was the sump pump issue. Was that taken care of?
The ditching is not done yet.
Okay.
We're
Anything
still
set up?
waiting on the contractor.
All right.
So are we ready to move on? Right. I say that with tongue in cheek because I'm not sure I am. We have, in your packet, you have 3 different options to return to school. And under each option are some advantages and disadvantages. It's not comprehensive. There are some research that I did and just doing some thinking that came up with those. So it's not intended to be all encompassing. In speaking with the staff, which I would consider our staff as the whole planning team, Craig, just for that. I know that we didn't really discuss that, but we try to do things as a staff protocol to discuss what needs to be done. We are planning to try to do a full return to school. That's the option that we're looking at. There are a lot of logistics that are going to take place. I'm going to have something in the kind of the process that I want to try to follow is I'm going to have something in writing within a week, a plan that has all of the different sections that need to be taken care of, whether it's transportation or hand washing or what's lunch going to look like, all of the logistics, put that together. Run it by our comprehensive planning team, make sure that everybody's, has a dog in that fight, and we flesh that out to make sure that we've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. Once that has happened, then we'll bring it to the board. I'd like to email that to the board as soon as that has happened, so that the board knows sort of what the plan is. It is important to know that the plan or the proposed plan is not in stone, and that it has to be flexible and be ready to be changed as our needs change. I don't think that we're going to be able to think of every single scenario and plan for that, so that there will be a time that we're going to just have to have a level of common sense involved in it as well. But I will have that plan or that proposed plan I'm hoping in your hands within 2 weeks. So I want to have a week to work on this, a week to get feedback from the staff, and then give you guys a chance to digest it. And if the timing works out, Craig, then during that August school board meeting can be an official yay or nay about coming back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Scott. I mean, I think we had a good conversation with principals today. Everybody's on that path, hoping to have a draft out by the end of July so that we can get comment, because the best work that we do, no matter how good it is, until it's out and getting reviewed and getting feedback, we're not going to be completely comprehensive. And so appreciate the work you're doing on that. As Scott knows, I'm working on an outline for all of the principals so that we get consistency as far as the way that the plans look, so that one school can compare with another. But I think that we're moving forward we took a big step today, I think, Scott, so thank you.
So can I just review that? So like you're thinking about taking a week to tackle that whole thing, which is probably like a year's worth of work, and then getting it out to the staff, and then getting it out to us around July 21st. Will the community then,
At
what's the
that
community
point,
timeframe?
at that point, I'm hoping that once it goes out to the board, I think what I'm going to ask is if there isn't anything earth-shattering that needs to be hashed out, like if there's, you know, little things we can work out. And then I would, unless I hear otherwise, then a couple of days after I've given it to you guys, then I'm going to send it out to the parents with the caveat that it is still not in stone, that this at this time, this is our plan. This is how we're going to do the buses. This is how we're going to do lunch. So that parents realize that things are still subject to change, so that they can have enough information to weigh, okay, I want my child to go back. I know what's going to happen. I know that they've done their due diligence to try to make it as safe as possible. So, you know, it's a complicated chain of communication about building it up, implementing it, getting who knows what, when, and all that sort of thing. So I think that makes the most sense. I don't think we have to wait until after the school board meeting in August.
That's
You know,
better.
if you look at it and you say, geez, that's definitely not going to work. I don't want to put something out to the parents that is completely against what the board's wishes are. So
No, I was just trying to figure out if we can communicate at some point to the parents that like by the 25th of July, we hope to distribute a plan, or maybe it's later than that. I mean, you want to make sure you give yourself enough time. So I don't want to promise something that's too early, but I think just knowing that there is a date in the future when we're going to get some sort of plan would be helpful for people to know.
that's the easy part. I can put it. That's the hard part is I might write a letter today, and then some of the contents are going to be different tomorrow. So I'll have to write a new letter tomorrow. That's the part that I know that Craig has mentioned. It's just been frustrating. So it's waiting for that time. But people have been really good in understanding. So
Yeah. So sorry, sir. We are going to get some.
August 25th. You know, you never know.
We're going to get something out from the central office from me to all staff and to parents about exactly what Scott said, to anticipate that it's coming, and also to inform them around the resources that DOE has made available on their website and the surveys that they have out. Because if we don't call attention to that, I don't think that parents would naturally go there to complete the surveys. And I think this is, again, Sarah, and we talked yesterday, it's one of those frustrating things that the Department of Education has a survey out, opened yesterday, closes on the 12th of July, and they're going to use that to construct and define the advice they're going to give us. I think we're ahead of that, although we, as Scott had said, the plan needs to be flexible, dynamic, easily adaptable based on what we do hear from them. But I think we've got a process moving forward and feels good, feels better than it did yesterday.
Great.
Can I ask a quick question of Craig, I guess? Is there a deadline by which parents have to decide if they're going to homeschool versus return, or is it going to be pretty flexible?
There is no deadline, Susan. And I think that a lot of parents are probably waiting to see what is recommended and what their options are. So we have kids coming through during a regular school year who move from in school to homeschool in the middle of the year. So there's no statutory or legal constraint on that. They can make that decision whenever they want.
Okay, great.
And Craig, there is a possibility, I'll say possibility, not probability, but if we go through here and even if we vote to put it through, there is a chance that the government could just say, there's no schools in Maine.
There is a chance, Scott.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that I'm going to be able to put that in the letter as well, that, this is, the
Yeah,
best.
I think I don't mean to be pejorative, but I think we soft pedal that, just letting everyone know that this is where we are now. It could change based on recommendations, executive orders, changes in the community spread, whatever it might be. But at this point in time, and we're back to that, at this moment, this is what we know and this is what we're planning.
Okay. And
Thank you.
the last thing in the report is summer school, and today was our first day of summer school. And, oh, I'm sorry, Norman?
Sorry, just back to that. Craig, you'd send out a note saying that the Maine Department of Education is going to be making the call about reopening schools. And that could mean a hybrid. I guess it's a decision that we're talking about, not a recommendation on their part, right? They're making the call.
Norman, that is the big unknown. When I talk with others, kind of as we're speaking now, it seems as if people are using the word recommendation, decision, kind of interchangeably, but also in contradiction to itself. The Portland Press Herald article was the one where the commissioner was quoted as saying, or was alleged to have said, I, the Commissioner of Education, with the governor, will decide if kids go back to school or not. That, from what I know of Maine, is not going to sit well. But it may be that the science, that the models, that the spread require them to, as you say, go to a hybrid or go to remote. But clearly, the people that I've spoken to in the AOS and within our schools, we really want to see the kids come back, and I think that we can do it as long as the infection rate doesn't increase. I mean, we're committed to that. We really want to. That's where we want to start. And to be candid with you, I've had other people tell me, start at the other end, get your ducks lined up, and then come to school in January. And I can't, in good conscience, do that.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Craig, question.
Hey, Bob.
If you do end up Zooming instruction for parents who work, would there be an option for the kids to come to the physical school and Zoom there?
That I think, Bob, is one of the questions that we'll get when Scott gets the plan out, is what are some of the other opportunities that we may want to provide to our families. And Sue has shared with us that in Winthrop, which is where she is moving to be the Director of Special Services, teachers have been told in writing from the board that they will work from the school site. If it's remote learning, they'll be at school doing remote. I caution the board not to go there just yet, particularly because we're just coming up to approving a contract. And I don't know I think that one size is not going to fit all. So what Winthrop might be doing, or what Bristol, Brunswick, Bath might be doing, is not going to work for South Bristol. I think one of the reasons that Scott is ahead of the curve and ahead of where some of the other schools are is because you have a facility that will accommodate your students, doing the social distancing, doing the making some of the modifications to the physical plant that GSB with 450 kids is going to have more difficulty with.
Well, we also have so many
You ask a
teachers.
really good question, because there's a lot of advocacy, and I think I shared with you that article from the American Association of Pediatrics, where they are urging us to reopen and get kids back, because in-person school education is so much more effective. And you're right, we're going to have people who have to return to work, and they're going to be looking for something. So at this moment, Bob, I don't know.
Okay, so just wrapping up my report, summer school started today, and we didn't have everybody here. We were missing 2 students, but we expect them to be here tomorrow. 2 additional students that we had today.
Yeah.
which is a total of 8 in school and 2 remote.
I can tell you it made my family happy to see the bus go by.
Oh, good.
Twice. It's very exciting.
In keeping with our school board policy to accept donations, we did have someone come to our door the other day with a check for $1,000. So we wanted to, and I have already issued a thank you to them. So I'm asking the board we have to take action to accept that $1,000.
Is it an anonymous contribution, Scott?
For public, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
Linda will be asking you, so
For
that's
public.
fine.
I'll make a motion to accept the $1,000 donation for our school.
Second it.
Okay, I'll vote in favor. Susan Barlow Rice,
Yes.
Rick McPhee, Norman Saucier,
Yes.
Bob Emmons.
Was the district one.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And we have to also have a vote to accept another figure. And Craig, might have to ask you to chime in, or maybe even Linda, that there was a district donation provided, and it was divided up among the schools. So Craig, I don't know if you can talk about that.
It was $500 for the food program. Is that correct?
That's correct, and to be divided by 4 of the 5 AOS schools that had a particular lunch program. Bristol didn't have the program, so we divided the 500 by 4 for $125. It was from the American Legion.
Okay,
Right. It's
thank you.
auxiliary.
Do we need
Auxiliary? Okay, thank you.
It's for what? For lunch debt, or what are we talking? What's it
It
for?
was for the food program that was ongoing to provide meals for students.
Like the food boxes that we did? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Can you speak more, Craig, about how
I was just wondering if we need it. That's why I'm asking you, because we are gotten donations like crazy. So if we can split that in between 3 schools instead of 4.
Sarah, I'm going to tell you, you'll make Candy cry if you do that,
Okay.
because I really pushed it.
That's fine.
Bureaucratically, it was not easy.
Yep, that's fine.
So somebody want to make a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept.
Second.
I'll vote in favor. Susan, I still have to do this, right, on Zoom calls? I have to go and call everybody, right?
It's up to you.
We just raise our hands.
Okay, let's just raise our hand. We're good on this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Got it.
Great.
And last but not least, we received 50 of these face shields that we will have, and at a grand total of $0.00. So that's good. So we will have those for the PPE. In addition, we are going to purchase some masks for kids and for staff. I know that the DOE has informed us that they are going to purchase these masks. I'd rather take matters into our own hands and have them, rather than wait and wait and wait and wait, and then all of a sudden regret not taking action earlier. So just wanted to kind of give you guys an update on our PPE. We will not have a shortage of PPE.
Good. And it'd be interesting if you can pass along guidance on face shields as it comes along. I know some states are not allowing their schools to wear them. I'm totally for them. But some schools are also mandating a drape on the bottom so the droplets don't go out. So we'll just have to keep up with that too.
It's changing moment by moment.
Exactly.
And that is my report.
All right, can I ask one more question? As far as the remote learning goes, I think you know what I'm going to ask, because I've asked you it before, but I still feel like we've had some technology issues, and you mentioned in your report that Chromebooks don't work nearly as well as the iPads or MacBooks in terms of connectivity. I think one thing that I've heard from the community and this board is that if we have to switch to remote learning, internet connections and devices should not be a hindrance to kids. Do we have any numbers about what it would look like if we were to purchase more iPads, how many students would need them, what grades, etc.?
So after yesterday's meeting, I haven't really researched all of the information about how many Chromebooks were not used, were not able to handle the Zoom. I have heard that with the Google Meet rather than Zoom, and we plan on using Google Meet next year, that the Chromebooks, it's much more friendly for the Chromebooks, so that should work a lot better. I do agree that no matter what we do, we need to beta test it first, and where we think the questions, I mean, we have enough data from last spring on the trouble spots to take certain devices home and try them in different areas to make sure that we don't have buyer's regret. So that but we also want to make sure that people have what they need. So I don't have an answer for you right now, Sarah.
Okay, yeah, in conjunction with that, I think really examining what type of device usage we need for our pre-KK classroom might be nice too.
I'll be speaking with the teachers and Danielle to figure out what their needs are.
And I'm asking in terms of money because I just want to, I mean, if we need to raise money or do something like that, now's the time. Okay. All right, this is the point in the meeting where I always lose my agenda. Okay. Principal's report, superintendent's report. Craig.
They said Rick is on vacation. I know that for the August meeting and the last warrant, he will have a budget report that will give you your status and balances, because right now we're still paying bills from fiscal year 20, but we'll have him update us when we meet in August. With my report, it's followed by a reopening planning, and I really feel that we've probably talked about reopening planning. I tried to follow up following a conversation with Sarah and Scott yesterday, just to send you that email about updating what we're thinking, what we're doing, because that information hadn't been coming out as fluidly as it probably should have. But we were, going directly from March to remote learning to the end of the year, and then just kind of crashed trying to figure out where we are. But I think that we found our stride again. I do want to report that, again, I've already asked if you know that Sue is leaving. We're going to miss her greatly. She has to go now because we've already given her parting gifts. And I think we chose pretty wisely too. The interviews for Sue's replacement will be next Wednesday. We have a good interview committee, a very solid committee of people from the AOS. We're going to actually do face-to-face interviews at Nobleboro, and hope we don't have a great application pool as far as numbers go, but we have some very strong candidates that we're looking forward to. A couple of people that Sue knows and speaks highly of. Following all of the civil unrest and Black Lives Matter, we have formed an equity and diversity committee that will operate similar to the way the wellness committee in the district operates. It was an idea that kind of self-generated, and by the end of a day when Ann and I were talking about it, kind of starting to share it, we had 20 people who had signed up. So we have a strong group from across the AOS, number of people from South Bristol, from every school, administrators, teachers, ed techs. What we'll be looking at is an overall view of some of the guidance we're getting from the Office for Civil Rights and the Office of Social Justice from the Department of Education, looking at planning and providing professional development, looking at the curriculum that we provide, and just trying to make sure that we build sensitivity, equity, and justice for our community. So stay tuned for that. Scott volunteered, and looking forward to spending more time with Mr. White.
Who wouldn't?
Did I say that? But I think it's going to be a good committee. Otherwise, the time that we're spending is mostly around the return to school. As I said, we'll get a letter out to families. I'm making a point of going out to visit each of the schools. I'm going to visit John and Lindsay at Jefferson tomorrow morning. What I realize that I need to do is, as I sit and sort through all of this information and start to write plans, I really need to put my eyes on the school. So when they talk to me, I can envision, the one-way hallways, how we select bathrooms with maybe alternating stalls, how we might make differences and changes around the delivery of lunches, the use of community spaces, communal spaces, and some of the other strategies that John and Lindsay and I will be thinking about, and then integrating into the Jefferson plan, or similarly into the South Bristol plan. So I'm looking forward to that. And I am starting to get out into the world, and that feels pretty good because it's been a while.
Good for you.
And Sarah, that's what I have.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to old business with the service animal policy. Did people have questions, concerns about the policy as it's written?
Sue's left us, hasn't she? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any sort of, I assume that there's kind of a training break-in period, but that's just going to be, would potentially just be agreed on between the school and potentially the parent of the child that's using the animal?
I think you raise a really good point. And when we talk about policy, it sounds black and white until we go to implement. And this is one of those policies that brings a change to South Bristol, which is noticed and impacts everyone. If a service animal, miniature horse or trained dog comes to South Bristol, we're going to have to do some awareness with the students, with the staff, conversations with the parents around care for the animal, who picks up after the animal, does the animal have a handler, some of those things that are addressed in the policy in broader language, but not addressed specifically in terms of day-to-day implementation. So yeah, I think that the policy sets the standard for access, use, need, but then the logistics of the day-to-day do need to be discussed.
No therapy animals?
No therapy animals, only
Emotional
service animals.
I've got to tell you, I had a friend last year send me a picture of the American troops landing on Omaha Beach on D-Day. And the caption said, "American youth leaving their safe spaces without their therapy animals."
Good one, Bob. Yeah, so Sarah, I don't know if you were voting tonight, but we did send the guidance from the Office for Civil Rights. It's been a policy, I think we started looking at it almost a year ago.
Yeah, this was before some of the people were on the board. That's why I thought we could just do a first pass tonight, and then we can vote on in August. And
So that's great. If you have questions, there's more information that we can get up. The FAQ, the frequently asked questions, is helpful. If things occur to the board as board members between now and then, ask, and we'll find some other information. I've had some experience with service animals, but not with students, but with adults. I think, one of the things we need to look at are kids who might have allergies to pet dander, how we manage that, and just some of those other little things. I mean, it was in one school where it was competing accommodations, if you will. A teacher had a dog and a student had a severe reaction to pet dander, and we had to figure out how to work around that. But it can be done. But I'll put that on the August agenda then.
great, thank you.
Do we have any service animals now?
We don't.
No.
We don't, but
Not anywhere in the AOS.
All right, we'll go back to that in August. Preschool staffing and transportation.
do you want me to comment on that?
Sure.
So one of the parts of the plan coming back is to look at the transportation piece. And one idea is to have a staggered start and a staggered dismissal if we can't fit all of our students on the bus at once. So if 57 students on the bus obviously can't social distance. So if we have to stagger the pickups and stagger the drop-offs, that means that as long as we stay within the contracted day, then if that's how we get kids to school, that's fine. But we're going to have to figure out who's going to be on the first run, who's going to be on the second run. So that's one piece to the transportation. The other is to have someone be on the bus, another adult to be on the bus. And I feel strongly about this because safety has never been as important as it is now in terms of kids being on the bus and wearing those masks in an enclosed area. We need an adult that can be diligent in helping those kids abide by that. And it cannot be the driver. The driver's got to pay attention to what he or she is doing, and we're going to need another person to help with that piece. So I foresee somebody that we have on staff, a position that we have on staff, riding on the bus as part of their position. So anyway, that's the transportation piece. And the preschool staffing, again, at this point, based on what we have, I'd like to keep that position, partly to help farm out the social distancing and honestly, the real potential to have somebody in the building that we may be able to utilize as a sub. I think when we have a shortage of staff for whatever reason it happens to be, I'm hoping that we can all be on the same page in terms of all hands on deck. We do it at whatever we needs to be done to get the coverage that we need to keep the kids safe. So that's what I have to say about that.
Do we run into any overtime issues with the bus monitor?
There's a possibility of that.
It wouldn't be huge though, would it? Because overtime is out over 40, right?
Right, and they're not at 40
Right.
in a regular week, but there is a chance of that.
So you said,
And Sarah, I think that's a great question. And those are some of the considerations where when we talk about the return to school, the money issue, the CARES, and all of those things that we just can't plan for at this time. But we've also just had a good conversation around the contract and overtime. So I think, we're pretty much on the same page. It's a matter of need and anticipation. So I appreciate Scott saying that, because the driver can't do those things.
well, and we talked about it for the preschoolers anyway, so it's a bonus.
Exactly.
Right.
You said 57 kids. Is that what our expected enrollment is?
Right now on paper, we have 57 students.
Are we getting an influx? What are the numbers above kindergarten, like first through eighth? That's great. I'm just surprised. That's.
I have them right here. I can go through them, or I can email them to you.
No. We have a significant increase in enrollment from first through eighth grade then. Because anyway, no, I'm just thrilled. That's all I need to hear.
I think too, when we're talking about this, not to dwell on what is and what isn't, there's some changing thought about buses where, if you remember, the first time I shared it with you is that dramatic downsize from 72 passenger bus becomes an 11 passenger bus or whatnot. But we're hearing now that if kids are masked, it's one child to a seat or siblings in a seat. So we're finding a more rational way to fill the bus, fill in from back to front, assigned seats, siblings sitting together. And I think that we're thinking also that a lot of parents are going to bring their kids.
And that will be part of the letter, Craig, that I will send home to the parents in early August or late July, so that we know for sure how many for certain that we can take off that bus list so that we can coordinate the route.
Absolutely, Scott. Good point.
And when you talk about preschool staffing, you're talking about keeping the ed tech, but that ed tech would not necessarily be But not necessarily having a teacher and an ed tech in pre-K, right? I mean,
I don't think as much as we thought it was going to be several months ago.
yeah, I mean, there may be some times that it definitely
Right.
needed, but maybe not full
But I
time.
think that we might have a little bit more flexibility in that position.
Yeah.
That it, just because of the numbers, because we originally thought, if I remember, 9 and 3 or 8 and 3 that we thought we had. So anyway, so at the after school program, in terms of, and you should have received, well, I'm going to kind of do two different things here. A Burns budget, just kind of preliminary thoughts for that before we fill it out. We're not in any hurry for that, but it's important for us to have a discussion about the after school program, because it makes up a lot of that ask. So the question is, with the after school program, we've done a couple of different things. We've done a little over a $20,000 stipend for the director, and we've done a less of a stipend, and with insurance. Given that we may have roughly 5 kids, we have sort of looked at this carefully, and we have kind of 5 regulars that we think that we will take advantage of the everyday after school program. That does not include, like, if we have staff meetings and staff, what are we going to do with this, with the children that belong to the staff? That doesn't include that figure. So I'm asking to try to get a temperature from the board in terms of, do we keep our after school program here? Do we consider other options like the YMCA and transporting kids there? So I did look at the figures based on our conversation, Sarah and Craig, from yesterday, and Katie helped me with going online and looking at Bristol's registration for their kids to go to the Y, and it's $60 a week
It
for
works out
somebody
to
to
about
attend.
$2,300 a kid.
Say that again?
I think it works out to about $2,300 a kid at most.
So I'm not really sure about how the logistics are worked out. I did try to reach out to Jen to find out that out, Craig, but the logistics about how soon they have to have a sign up list and all that sort of thing. But we're going to contact the YMCA to find that out. If we do the YMCA piece, I'm really hoping for an ease in the billing, so that maybe we get a bill at the end of the month and then we can take care of it that way, so we don't have to deal with it on a weekly basis. So South Bristol School, you had this many kids come on this many days, so here's your bill. So
I think it's important and imperative that you look at the YMCA, because, as you know, I've struggled with the structure of the South Bristol after school program. I recognize the need, but cost effectively and structure, this is the time to look at it. I think that we agreed yesterday to look at the YMCA, so I'm glad you followed up.
Have we pulled our incoming students to see if there are going to be more regulars? The new students?
No, we have not pulled them.
Okay. Because I think it's, yeah, actually, does anyone else have any comments? I've been talking enough tonight.
Well, you have so many full-time students. How about part-timers?
We don't have any part-time students. I'm not sure what you mean, Norman.
In the after-school program? You say you have 5 regulars?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, the numbers may vary on the regulars, but on the staff days, number may double. If there is an activity going on that is just you have to be at because it's the Super Lego Club, then you might have more kids. So it does vary a little. Some parents have their kids come on a Tuesday, Thursday. Some it's every Wednesday. It's a need that has been driven a lot by the parent needs. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. The benefit is it might be a little bit more amenable to the parents because they could pick their child up on the way home and they don't have to drive to the end of the peninsula, but I'm not really sure. But it does have budget implications. Sarah, you came up with a figure of $2,300 a kid. Just the quick math that I did, if we used 5 as a number, I have a little over $11,000. So in terms of putting the Burns budget together, you know, if we put it in as if we were going to have the after-school program here, we would have enough to cover the cost of the kids if we sent them to the Y.
And I think if the Y is willing to do this, I think this is a good year to try it out. And I think my thoughts would be that the understanding would be this is a 1-year trial period. I honestly am not ready to give up on the South Bristol School after school program, but I think because of COVID, because of lots of things, and because we don't have a teacher, we have this is a good year to try this. And I think that the 2,300 figure is the most. That's like a non-Y member 5 days a week. So it could be a lot lower than that, but I think we can use some of those numbers to forecast the Burns Fund. And it is, just to be clear too, it's a pre-K through, it's a K or pre-K through 5th grade program. So they have programming for those kids. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the kids can be at the Y, but there's no concrete programming for them. And I don't know what that's going to look like with sports and everything this fall. So there may be tennis lessons they can take and other things they can sign up for, but there's no real oversight, I don't believe, for the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Another factor that helps in the decision-making, I think, the after-school program was really helpful for if our students stayed after school for tutoring or academic study, or to stay there after a practice. And I don't foresee us having students be in the building beyond the regular school day. So that's a need that had been a community need that we don't need to fill now.
And would it be possible to hire somebody, within our community for those staff meetings until 4 o'clock to help with the staff kids? I mean, that doesn't rule out that possibility, does it?
That the school hires somebody?
Like there are ways that we can get care for, yeah, I don't know.
I just want to be careful with that because I don't want to see, okay, we're using funds to.
No, but I think
care
there
of the
maybe,
staff needs.
yeah.
I'm not sure about the optics behind that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought it through, but it would maybe be something to look at to see if there is a way we can do that.
Yep, there is a need for that. Okay, I'm out of gas. I'm done.
I think under new business, I'd just like to talk quickly about Burns, if that's okay. Because of all of the unknowns, it was hard to get a first draft of the potential proposal out today. And I just thought it would kind of maybe lead us astray. So I'd like to propose, Normand and I have kind of started looking at the history of the Burns Fund and how the money has been spent. So I'd like to, I guess, propose to the board that Normand and I kind of make up a Burns Fund committee. If anyone else is interested in joining, we can talk about that too. And then with the idea that Normand and I can meet with Rick and Scott, and Craig, I know you're busy, you might just, with at least Rick and Scott and Normand and myself to go over some of the history where we overspent, and then also look at the proposal to get it then to you by like no later than the week after next. So you still would have a good 2 weeks to look at it and come up with questions so that we can vote on it in August. Does that sound like a all right solution?
I think that's a great idea. And I saw Bob kind of start to raise his hand and then pull it back down.
I could handle Betsy for you.
That must be an inside joke, but okay.
Yeah. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. And please, like, I think we do have to vote on it in August so we can get it out. So once we email the proposal to the board, if you can look at it and just throw out any questions or bring them to the August meetings, if there are any figures or anything that would need to be prepared for ahead of time, just we can get you to request those, and we can make sure we have the proper materials on in August.
So Sarah, just we're coming, that was new business. We're coming to executive session. So for August, I have the regional program agreements, a look at the tech, Chromebooks versus iPads, pre-KK, not exactly sure what I have for that, service animal vote, and the Burns grant.
Yep.
Okay, thank
And
you.
should we do public comment now before we go to executive session in case anybody doesn't want to stick around until after executive session?
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
There's no questions in the Q&A. I received a question by email, but I haven't received permission to use it in the public comment. And the person is an attendee, so they can submit it through the Q&A.
Okay.
So I'm confused. What does that mean, Linda?
Terry Mitchell sent me a question through email, but I believe she also can submit it through the Q&A, and I asked her if she wanted me to use it as a question for public comment, and I have not heard from her, so I feel like without permission, I probably shouldn't.
No, I agree with you. Okay.
Well, and we can see if you do after executive session, if you get permission to do that, then we can do it again.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. We'll say goodbye to John. Good night.
All right, and I'll make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss negotiations between public employer and teachers and support staff pursuant to 1 MSRA 405D. A second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, so I just need to lock the meeting.
So we don't have to do anything, I don't think.
No, we don't.
They put. Thank you, Scott. Are you leaving?
We tried to make this complicated, but we found a way not to.
Thank you
God,
very
have a
much,
safe
everybody.
drive.
Have
All
a
right.
great night. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Thank you, Scott.
Take care, Scott.
Okay, I'm stopped.
All right, now we're recording. That's good.
Yeah, it's good to notice those things.
Yeah.
Well, that might be recording us just sitting here doing nothing for a minute, but
Well, I went back and watched one of the meetings, and that was an eye-opener, I'll tell you.
I bet.
I've done other schools meetings to some degree, but I don't care to go back and watch.
I know.
Although it's a good record. I mean, it's, you know, there are some advantages.
Oh, it's a great record, and it's nice to have, because we've been challenged on minutes a couple of times in a couple of communities, and there is only, I mean, it's that conflict of interest I have when I take minutes. And so now you've got the YouTube recording, and you can go back and actually look at the language and how things evolved.
Did Linda freeze up? Oh, no, she's there. Good.
Okay, somebody's back.
Yep.
Oh, Katie's here.
So at least that does give me hope that other people can join, though, because she just went through. I'm gonna hang up.
I think it's great that Katie's here, because you are going to make the motion and the vote to accept the contract for support staff. Katie can observe it, and then I think, you know, you're ready probably to adjourn.
Yeah. Okay.
I did send the link to everyone, so they are able to rejoin.
Okay, no, and we've got Katie, so we know that they're out there.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to accept the proposed, 2020, 2021? Oh, okay, I'm just gonna make it. Forget it. Well, I'm spewing all
I
the
think Susan should do it.
Yeah, that's what I was going. That's what I was
It's her
thinking.
baby.
Yeah, I would have, but I'll second it.
Okay.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve
Oh.
and accept the 2020-21 South Bristol support staff contract.
And I'll second it.
I agree.
All right. I see everybody's hands
Agreed.
up.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
The vote is unanimous. And we're excited.
And I would just thank you again for all the work you did on that. It was, I think it's, as I said, it was a good contract, a little frustrating at times, but great to have it done.
And likewise to Terry and Katie. I mean, they put a lot of
Yes.
work in that too. So.
And you're
We'll
right,
go through
Sarah.
it again in a couple of months. So, right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right to mention Terry, because Terry did a lot of the yeoman's work on that as far as retyping, changing. She's really good at that, and it really took it away from having to ask Linda or you or I to do that. So I really appreciate that.
And it's nice to have, we've noticed it with the teachers and the support staff, having new support staff or teachers come in to learn those roles, so that as we continue this process every 3 years, and we have some institutional memory with the support staff side and our side to help move that process along.
That's great.
All right, without objection, I declare the meeting adjourned at 7:17 p.m.
Thank you all. Sarah, nice job. Thank you.
All right,
Linda,
Thank you.
have a good night.
All right.
Good night.
Night, everyone.
Good night.